The Oracle Network.
Welcome to Brew Crime, the podcast where we drink brews, talk crime, conspiracies, or whatever catches our attention. This is Mike and my co-host.
It's a JT.
Perfect. And today we are going to be covering cases on scary Christian sects. Not sex, sects.
Although that could be scary.
Yes, it could be with these people especially. Woo.
For real.
Lots of sex in my case, but...
Not in mine.
No, okay.
Not in mine. Other than the exorbitant number of children and grandchildren.
Well, that's part of it. Yeah, in mine too.
I can honestly say I might not be looking forward to this.
Yeah, no doubt. That's why we're awkwardly laughing now, right?
Yes. Yes. So, sir, how's it been?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. You know, the world's still on fire, yada, yada, yada.
I'm just, I'm looking for anything consistent. So if fire is consistent at this point, I'll just sit in the chair with fire surrounding me going, this is fine. That's where I'm at this point. So
makes sense.
Yeah. But I have a job. I have health. I got my flu shot on Friday. That's
Woo-hoo.
good. So I'll be excited when the whole Moderna booster shot shows up. And then I can take care of that as well.
Nice. That's a long ways off here, unless you are in a old folks home.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're at. And only Pfizer's released the booster.
Yeah.
So I'm just waiting for Moderna. We're hoping by the end of the month, but we'll see. I'm in a hospital pretty much daily, so I'd like to have that extra shield.
I don't blame you. And I mean, the BC government just announced that they expect to be able to start giving kids from 5 to 11 Pfizer shots maybe by the start of November.
That sounds like what they're estimating here too.
Yeah,
and
so that's exciting too, because we're already at 83% of people 12 and over that are vaccinated.
We're holding out. We've got some ivermectinites. It's fine.
Well, we got that too, but luckily less.
Just go get vaccinated, everybody.
Yeah, please don't be that way.
We're already seeing 2 or 3 more strains in different areas in South America and Africa. Luckily, the African one, the last time I looked, wasn't moving. But I think that's the Mu variant. But yeah, so the longer we let this go, it's just smart. It just mutates quickly, and it's smart, and we need to get it down to the flu.
Yeah.
Level.
If we ever can.
Which a lot of people are still arguing. It's no worse than the flu. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. If this is the 1918 flu or whatever it was.
Yeah. The U.S. has exceeded the Spanish flu numbers. And they've also lost 2% of their population.
Ouch.
Which, when you're talking 321 million is a lot of people. Right. So way more people than had to die.
Yep.
And people are like, well, it's no worse than the Spanish flu then. And I'm like, yeah, but the Spanish flu, they were still like bleeding people. Like, we are so far advanced. Get with science, please.
Yeah. Well, they can't even get with the technology of the Spanish flu masks. So.
Yeah. It's like the first guideline on all of the old paperwork. Yeah. Wear a mask.
Yeah. You want to watch a football game? Wear your mask. That was on one of the signs I saw.
So ridiculous. Okay. Well, anyways, I feel like we start out with this every time, but we just go get vaccinated so we don't have to.
Yes, exactly.
Although I have a feeling we're not really talking to our population of listeners.
Probably
we're
not.
Talking to people who don't listen.
Likely.
Yay, our people.
Whoop, whoop.
All right. So I think I'm getting going first. So here we go. I'll kind of give you a little introduction, then I'll showcase the beer, and we'll pop into this. So sometimes when you pick cases, you pick something that interests you. And at times you pick one because the message it carries is just too strong or meaningful to avoid. This is absolutely not representative of any of those times at all. This choice is merely a chance to make endless fun of one of the most hateful groups that has ever cursed the earth of the United States of America. So when you think about hate groups, there's multiple that come to mind. You got neo-Nazis, the Ku Klux Klan, but the group I'm speaking to about today is one that's not large, but it's everywhere in the worst ways. They carry neon signs that are loud with hate, and they sing their hateful parodies of pop songs. And recently we figured out rock songs and every other possibility. They protest funerals, marriages, and marches. I'm talking about the Westborough Baptist Church.
Vile fucking humans.
Yeah, let me give you just a list of some folks that have been targeted by them, just to start us off.
Sounds good.
President Ronald Reagan, Princess Diana, Supreme Court Chief Justice William Rehnquist, NFL player Reggie White, Sonny Bono, George Carlin, atheist, children's television host Fred Rogers, Heath Ledger, Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, Roger Ebert, Catholics, Australians, Swedes, and the Irish. Just to name a few.
Yeah, just to name a few.
Yeah. While I'm going to cover the majority of the church, I'm also going to spend some time covering Fred Phelps. Why? Because the cornerstone of this church is literally one man, and it sure ain't Jesus at all. So I'm going to discuss kind of the religion of Westborough broken down into two categories of primitive Baptist and hyper Calvinism. Then I'm going to cover Fred Phelps, his early and adult life, and then death. And then I'm going to dissect the hell out of Westborough and what they've done. Keep in mind that this is going to be a huge, quote, things that make you go, ew topic. Yes. So the beer that I picked today is a beer by a local brewery in Richmond here. The brewery is called Hardywood. This happens to be a Fightin Hokies lager. I am in no way tied to Virginia Tech, but they brewed this thing in collaboration with Virginia Tech's College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. And really, the flavor of the beer has nothing to do with my choice. I'll tell you in a second why I picked it. But this is basically kind of clean and crisp. It smells like kind of bread. It says fresh bread in the description. I'm just going to say bread. And there's kind of a floral note from hops, some malt sweetness in the finish. And it's a golden Munich style lager. And it's cold conditioned for weeks. They make it sound like it's so intense.
Yeah. Well, if it's a lager, it's got to be aged longer to get rid of any off flavors.
Okay. All right. So they're just telling me something that I should know already, but I didn't. Yeah. It has it's weird. It's in a glass bottle. I told you it has kind of like a plasticky aftertaste. I don't know if this is just a bad batch or what. Maybe it's a bad bottle. I have a second one here just in case. But I picked this because Hardywood, I think since 2016, has had a fundraiser / kind of activist event called Love on Tap. And Hardywood is one of the breweries in Richmond, out of the many, but one of the breweries that supports LGBTQ. And I think that covering Westborough today, I wanted to support a company that supports that because fuck you, Westborough.
Yeah, amen to that because, fuck Westborough Baptist Church, which is not a Baptist church.
It's not. It's just easiest to say.
Yeah.
So speaking of, let's kind of cover the religion of Westborough. Something that's unique about them is that they're hyper-focused on religion, but their concept of religion is completely misplaced.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a group that seems to understand the Bible more, but here we are. And by the way, I'm by no means an expert on theology or biblical terms or items. Am I a cradle Catholic? Yep. Am I now Methodist? Sure. Do I have any good hold on the Bible? Nope. Not at all. I
Better
could probably
than
tell
me.
you well, yeah. I could tell you the story of multiple heavy metal songs, but I'll fan through the Bible to find a certain book about 5 times before I actually find it. And any Catholic that tells you they don't do that is lying.
Yep, I grew up Catholic. Yep.
Right. Yep. Genesis is in the beginning, Revelation's at the end, and anything else in the middle is just like, where's Waldo? I don't know. Right. But like I mentioned, Westborough was primitive Baptist and hyper Calvinistic. So primitive Baptist, I had not heard of this flavor of Baptist before. They're conservative Baptists that adhere to a degree of Calvinist beliefs who came out of the controversy among Baptists in the early 19th century. Primitive in this case means original. So they kind of consider themselves the quote OGs, which makes me sound completely really old by saying oh geez, but here we are. The churches kind of come up in the mountainous regions of the American South, and that's where they're found in the greatest numbers. In terms of some of the theological views, they reject some elements of Calvin's theory, like infant baptism. They choose to avoid the term Calvinist in general. They hold strong to the 5 points of Calvinism and reject Arminianism. That is a mouthful. It's a good thing I did my story first, because on that second beer, that wouldn't have been able to be said.
Yeah, no doubt.
So what does that mean? There's 5 points of Calvinism. Human will. So while humanity possesses free will, they're in bondage to sin until it's transformed. The second one's election, which is unconditional election, meaning when God created the world, he selected people who would receive salvation. Everyone else is just going to live in sin. Justification and atonement. Justification is by faith alone. The doctrine asserts that it is on the basis of faith that believers are made right by their transgressions of the law of God, rather than on the basis of good works which they have done. So it doesn't matter how good you are. If God did not choose you to be saved, you're out.
Huh, this sounds like another church out there.
So many.
It's true,
the fourth is conversion, which means basically that God works through the Holy Spirit to bring about the salvation of an individual through spiritual regeneration, regardless of the individual's cooperation. So whether you want it or not, whether you agree, is still going to happen or not. And then finally, perseverance and apostasy, which is the eternal elect in Christ will preserve in faith. And that's kind of what they call people that are going to be saved, is the elect. Everybody else is, as Small Soldiers, the movie once said, just a toy.
God.
That's a really old reference that nobody's going to get.
No.
And that's okay. In addition, they're characterized by kind of extreme conservatism. So, that's exciting.
That's going to roll through my case too.
They also have some very unique practices. One of those things being a cappella singing. They believe that church music should not involve instruments, because there is not a command in the New Testament that says for people to play instruments. That's not the same for everyone. Of course it's not, because the subflavors of primitive baptism, specifically African-American primitive Baptists, don't share that belief and use instruments.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they don't believe in Sunday school. They believe in family integrated worship. So everybody is in the worship center receiving a religious instruction. They think that theological seminaries have no warrant or sanction from the New Testament, nor in the example of Christ and the apostles. So basically, it's kind of like a earn your officiant license online kind of a thing. That's what I get from it. They just don't. Yeah. They don't believe in formal training. And then finally, here's my question for you, Mike. How do you feel about feet?
I'm not big on feet. I've got two. One of them's got plantar fasciitis, so I really don't like that foot right now.
Yeah, that's not comfy.
No, it's
in
not.
Any way, shape, or form. No. So most primitive Baptists perform foot washing to represent humility and service among membership. But here's the part I don't understand about that. During the washing of the feet, they separate the sexes. They keep men and women separate, but the practice is credited with increasing equality. So I guess they're afraid that somebody is going to wash a woman's feet and be like, oh.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll be right back. I got to go to the washroom.
Well, and I'll tell you right now, for a second, I thought you actually had to go.
No. Let's read from the book of Judas, please.
It leaves you hanging.
There's a cross to bear.
You nailed it.
Oh, jeez.
I'm driving the bus to hell. Okay.
I'll meet you there, don't worry.
I'm offending somebody this episode anyway, so...
Yeah, so am I.
All right.
Whatever.
So I guess the question at this point is, are you tired yet? Because this was exhausting. And if you're exhausted and I'm exhausted, there's only one thing to do, and that's go forward and keep talking about it.
Yep. Get another drink.
Right. So now that we talked about primitive Baptists, let's hop into hyper-Calvinism. In short...
Is that like, I'm a Calvinist, woo!
It's just steroid-driven Calvinist.
Speed.
Speed. I am speed. In short, hyper-Calvinism has been used to define those that reject the idea of atonement. They believe that if you fuck up, you fuck up, and that's the end of it. There is no atoning for your sins. They also reject that there's a general design in the death of Christ. So what does that mean? That Jesus died because Jesus died, and any further meaning in the death is trivial. It also denies that there's a universal duty for humans to believe in Christ for the salvation of their souls, which plays a lot into the idea that there isn't much meaning in the death of Jesus at all.
What about Brian? Life of Brian. What about Brian?
Now that, on the other hand, is they put the Bible on the altar, and then right next to it is a DVD copy of Life of Brian. On
Makes
second
sense.
thought, it's probably a laser disc.
Probably, yeah.
So
And they only have a VHS.
Right. They literally don't believe that Jesus died for anybody's sins, because that means there's atonement. A definition of Ian Murray says that there's an emphasis on the denial of the university command to repent and believe, and the assertion that, quote, we have only warrant to invite to Christ those who are conscious of a sense of sin and need. So in addition to this, there's a gospel standard articles of faith and statements by ministers, which is a mouthful for these hyper-Calvinists. So they have denial of sufficient grace in the atonement for all persons. Christ died only for the elected people going to heaven, but he died sufficiently for the rest, and that atonement is insufficient to save someone if Christ never meant for them to be saved anyways. Jeez. Denial of indiscriminate offers of the gospel to all persons. Jesus only invited the weary and heavy laden. To invite all is in direct contradiction to the biblical teachings. In other words, make sure you run a marathon to church to be weary and carry a barbell of weights to be heavy laden, and you're good. That's what that means. Not really, but they really don't think that everybody should be invited to the table. Which is wild, because churches kind of started at a round table in kitchens and over meals. It's wild to me.
Yeah, I mean, even theirs does.
Right. And then finally, there's a denial of duty faith. So according to Strict Baptists magazine, because that's the thing, says that it implies universal design, including atonement, which asks everyone to exercise a faith that believes that Jesus gave himself for them. So that's duty faith. And they deny all of that.
I deny duty too.
For real.
Duty, though, not duty.
Right. But here's what's confusing to me. You think about any denomination of Christianity, and it's usually about bringing people in for the most part, right? There are some pieces of some sects that may seem like they seek to exclude people. In fact, now that I think about it, there's a lot of places in Christianity that seek to exclude people. And if traditions don't, there are a lot of people in the church that make you feel like you don't belong.
Yeah. And that's not just Christianity either. That's a lot of religions in general.
Oh, it is. It is. I don't mean to focus in on that. I mean, you know, technically being a Christian myself, I'm giving myself a hard time, and I think that's okay. I think we should do that more often.
That's probably the most important thing to do. Yeah.
Right. Not that I am Bertha better than you, right? I'm not the church lady, but well, isn't that special? But I think hyper-Calvinism is truly a belief that outwardly, loudly seeks to say, if you aren't one of the elect, you aren't saved. So what's the point in joining us? So just don't. And to that, I say, I need a drink.
Yeah.
Of course, now that I've spoken on religion, it only makes sense that I speak of one of the most godly men I've ever read about. That person being Fred Phelps. And I do want to say that I did star vomits in mouth. It's just So let me just kind of bury the lead here and say that Westborough Baptist Church Phelps developed has been called arguably the most obnoxious and rabid hate group in America. So that should tell you a little bit about him.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like the Nazis hate people of color. This group hates these people. They hate everyone.
Literally equal opportunity offenders.
Yeah.
On November 13th, 1929, in Meridian, Mississippi, he was born, the oldest of two kids. His mom was a homemaker, but died of esophageal cancer at the age of 23, which sucks.
That's really young. Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. And his aunt cared for Fred and his sister until December 1944, when his dad married a woman by the name of Olive Briggs, who's a 39-year-old divorcee. So all I can say is scandal, right?
Yep.
His dad was also Methodist. Fred was an Eagle Scout. He was president of the Young People's Department of Central United Methodist Church. He was also in the Mississippi Junior State Guard. He graduated from high school at the age of 16 and was sixth in his class.
He starts out sounding okay, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of twists here where I actually didn't know much about Fred, and I was very surprised. So this is one of the silliest things that I've ever heard, though. I wasn't living at the time. It's hard to say, but Phelps was given an appointment to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point.
Wow.
And when you're given an appointment, that's great. When you're from a small town, you take it because it's free education.
Yeah.
It's a pretty damn big deal. So it's really kind of the point in which his life should have zigged, and it ended up zagging. And it zagged when he attended nothing more than a tent revival.
Wow.
So for those at home, a tent revival is basically literally mobile church would set up tents in various places going on tour, like the circus, which really most of the time it was a circus. And people would go and find Jesus and see miracles performed and all of that.
I have to say that I prefer the Cirque du Soleil, but
dude, me too. So he attended the tent revival. He denied the appointment and chose to follow his religious calling instead. So that one tent revival did it. In 1947, he was ordained a Southern Baptist minister and moved to Cleveland, Tennessee to attend Bob Jones College at the age of 17. He was estranged from his father, which may have played a lot into later on. And that's why I bring it up. It was kind of a combination of him denying the appointment, abandoning the Methodist faith, and being outspoken about his father's marriage to a divorcee. Again, the whole birth of better than you. He just couldn't be stopped. And a year later, he dropped out of Bob Jones and he moved to California to become a street preacher, because why not? And he attended John Muir College in Pasadena.
I don't think I've heard of too many street preachers that weren't hate mongers. They're just so often hate mongers, unfortunately.
They're at least twice a year. They were at both of my undergrad and graduate colleges, and they are just horrendous. Yeah. One of the best experiences I ever had was sitting there watching this guy just spew hate. And in front of him were I think it was 4 students. One was juggling, one was on a unicycle, and then there were 2 gay guys making out in front of him. And I was never happier in my life.
Yeah, we actually had a street preacher here, I think it was last year, spouting off horrible things against the LGBTQ community in Vancouver's gay neighborhood. And a guy spoke out, grabbed his mic, and ended up having, I think it was his arm broken by this guy. And he worked at one of the local sports radio stations, and he was off work for quite a while because his arm was shattered.
And the sad part is that these guys really think that this is going to get them somewhere.
Yeah, it will. If they believe in heaven and hell, it'll get them somewhere for sure. But it's not going to be where they want to be.
It's going to be hysterical when they knock on the pearly gates and they're like, "What do you want?"
Yeah.
It's like the pizza guy from Home Alone, where he's looking for the parents and you just can't find the parents. And they're just like, just go away.
Yep.
You need to try another life. Here's a turtle. That's what I say to that.
Cockroach.
Yeah. So he attended college in Pasadena. 3 years later, he was featured in Time magazine. They wrote a story on him as he was lecturing other students about, quote, sins committed on campus by students and teachers, including promiscuous petting, evil language, profanity, cheating, teachers' filthy jokes in classrooms, and pandering to the lusts of the flesh.
All the good things in life. Like, what the fuck?
I was going to say, that sounds like college.
Okay. Yeah, no doubt, right?
So this is something that was hysterical. At a certain point, the college basically said, fuck off. They didn't really say that, but they said he needed to stop. You can't bring these things onto a public college campus. And that didn't stop good old Freddie baby. He moved across the street and shouted his sermons from there.
Which, of course he did.
If you know Westborough Baptist, right? This is quite the theme. Quite the theme.
Yeah.
1954, He's 25. He moves his family to Topeka, Kansas. He was hired by Eastside Baptist Church as an associate pastor. And the following year, church leadership opened at Westborough Baptist Church. And we're going to get to that next. But before I kind of get into the church itself, there was an interesting piece of information about Fred Phelps I had no idea about. Sometimes when you kind of research these cases, groups, topics, you find stuff you didn't expect, but don't get excited, because although it's fascinating, it's not exactly a full pardon on the shit that he did the rest of his life.
Yeah.
But around 1964, Phelps earned a law degree and founded his own law firm. Some of his first notable cases were actually related to civil rights.
Weird.
In fact, his involvement in civil rights cases around Kansas gained him praise from local African-American leaders. Phelps said, quote, "I systematically brought down the Jim Crow laws of this town." His daughter said, quote, "We took on the Jim Crow establishment, and Kansas did not take that sitting down. They used to shoot our car windows out screaming." Phelps took cases from African-American clients alleging racial discrimination by school systems. Some settlements for his clients were actually reached. And despite this, so before I hop into the next thing, I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah.
And that's something that I had no idea about.
Mind blown.
Right. Exactly. But, you know, one of his sons who left the church said that didn't necessarily reflect his personal views.
Yeah, no.
We'll kind of leave it at that when we talk more about the church.
I mean,
but
you can get fame and that gets more eyes on you. It doesn't mean you're doing it for the good of other people.
right. You know, and he'd have a meeting with somebody and be understanding and sympathetic, and then they'd leave and he'd be like, "Look at this dumbass." So it's like, and I say that because I really refuse to say what he actually would be saying.
Yeah, for sure.
There are just quotes that I just prefer not to use. And there aren't going to be many of those this time. So he was disbarred in 1977 by the Kansas State Board of Law due to conduct during a lawsuit. He basically made a few witnesses cry and break down, calling them sluts and whores and all of this stuff while on the job, which even off the job is real shitty. And while he was barred from the state, he practiced federal law until 1985, when 9 federal judges filed a complaint against Phelps alleging false accusations against the judges. This was settled in 1989, and Phelps agreed to stop practicing law permanently.
Wow.
But that doesn't matter anyways, because the damage was continued to be done, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't just a lawyer. He also headed the Westborough Baptist Church. So,
big sigh.
one of the main reasons we spoke on Phelps is that he was the church and vice versa. The early beginnings of the Westborough Baptist in reality was that it was an independent Baptist church. The church was a branch of the Eastside Baptist Church in Topeka, Kansas, established in 1931. Phelps was brought on in 1954, like I said, to be an associate pastor at Eastside. And then he was promoted to pastor of Westborough Baptist in 1955 when it opened. With its first service on November 27, 1955, Phelps preached primitive Baptist doctrine. Part of this is scriptural literalism. Everything in the Bible, literally true. That's what that means. In addition, only a predetermined number of people selected for redemption will be accepted. So God gives you 100 tickets. It's like pre-selling PS5s. They only have so many, right?
Yeah. Or Jehovah's Witness.
Yes. So Phelps eventually broke ties with Eastside and became independent of any other institution. He alienated everybody who started out at that church who didn't agree. So he was left with a small following in his church. And the only folks that seemed to be able to stand him were his relatives and a few friends. Surprise.
Yeah, surprise, yeah.
So I also mentioned earlier that Phelps founded the Phelps Chartered Law Firm in 1964. And while this law firm did take on a series of civil rights lawsuits and other cases, eventually it would be used to defend Westborough Baptist Church in their multitude of lawsuits. And it would be used to sue communities that are targets of Westborough's protests. Really, it's kind of their own in-house lawsuit factory. Yeah.
Fuck them.
This is how I see this going. Come and get your lawsuits. Get your lawsuits here. It's a buy two, get one free event. You don't have any money? Are you friends with the Phelps family of the Phelps? Wait, are you Westborough? Then it's free, my boy. Free, I tell you. That's what I see.
I just need some hateful signs on some street corner.
Right. In neon.
Yes.
So in terms of, like I mentioned, the makeup of the church, I went with the information from the Southern Poverty Law Center, who's been keeping track of these people for quite some time. This is kind of a tad older because it still mentions Phelps as if he was alive, but the idea is the same. In all, the church is made up of the Phelps. 9 of his 13 kids, 4 are estranged. We'll talk about that in a little while. Their children and spouses, and a small number of other families and individuals. So here's the thing that kills me. Like, can you imagine marrying into this?
No.
Right. So like, what the hell would the first dinner over at that house be like? The conversation on the phone, it's like, well, what's your home address? Well, you know, the compound when you see it. but is there an address? No, just look for the upside down flag and statements from God written on the side of the building.
Yeah.
I don't want to go now.
Yeah.
But
Look across the street and there'll be some sinners across the street.
It's the worst. So in total, there's around 70 members as of 2016. They had 10 more in 2011. So a few may have left, a few may have died, but they're not growing, which is fine. Totally fine.
I guess they could inbreed a little more.
That's a whole nother. Oh man,
they need more members.
They need to move back to where they started and not be in Topeka.
That's true.
But in terms of protests, we all know Westborough for the protests. Those began. There's actually a couple stories regarding the beginning of their protests, but the group first targeted homosexuality in 1989. They discovered something referred to as, quote, the tea room. What this was a public bathroom in which gay people met for interactions, right? Which is so stupid because their protesting leads people to not want to be out and be themselves, which leads them to stay in and do things. And
yeah,
it's ridiculous. So basically, they found out that this was happening in Gage Park, which was 6 blocks northwest of the headquarters in Topeka in 1991. Eventually, the protests spread and they were traveling across the country. And almost immediately, their style of protesting was attracting quite a negative reaction. Mm-hmm. And while most people would say, hey, maybe we should chill, Phelps found it proof of their righteousness. And he said so. He said, the more people are pissed, the more righteous we are.
Huh.
The church, and I use that loosely as we have this whole time, continued to protest, to include one at Washburn University. And this resulted in some explosive reactions. And when I say church loosely, I use explosive literally.
Yes.
2 people set up a pipe bomb.
Oh, shit.
This got intense real fast. It exploded at the home of the daughter of Fred Phelps, and they thought he was at the house. In the end, nobody was injured. So, okay. One of the men was fined. I couldn't find information on the other guy, but one man was fined $1,700 and he was sentenced to 16 days in prison plus 100 hours of community service for setting off a pipe bomb. But like, I can see it kind of in my head where the judge passes the sentence and the man walks past the judge as he's taken to prison. And the judge is like, don't worry, me too.
Yeah. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. It'll be fine. We'll get you out.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
People will probably high five you in prison.
For sure. For sure. Maybe not the neo-Nazis, but everybody else.
Even them probably, because they don't hate as many people as the Westborough Baptist Church does.
Listen, if Westborough hates Fred Rogers from Mr. Rogers, the bar is set pretty low.
Yeah. I've never been a big fan of him, but I don't hate him.
Aww. I won't judge. No. It's okay.
Canada was more of a Mr. Dress Up country, so.
Mr. Dress Up?
You'll have to look him up, yeah.
Apparently I will, and I shall. The other event happened in 1998. Westborough picketed the funeral of college student Matthew Shepard. And Matthew Shepard was beaten to death because he was gay. Up until that point, Phelps was maybe a blip on the radar, other than some of the other smaller things. But after that, he repelled an entire country. At the funeral, they held up signs we're now familiar with that says, now forgive me. This is the only time I'm going to say any of these signs. But I have to put it in at least once, just so you know the inflammatory text if you have never seen pictures of these folks.
These are quotes from the signs. These are not words we would say.
Never. So, quote, fags are nature freaks. Matt in hell. And God hates fags, which is very much a typical thing you see from them. Most of those, the thing that I hated the most was the Matt in hell. You're protesting Matthew Shepard's funeral. You're saying that Matt's in hell. It's horrible.
Yeah, for sure.
But, and like I said, I don't like saying it, but not to give the honest horror of everything is doing a disservice. And I don't want to bring attention. That was a challenge I had. It's like, I don't really want to bring attention to them because they actually like any attention that they get. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what it is. But I also think people need to know about this hate group if they don't. And we need to do something about it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, some places have.
Yeah, and they have, and we'll talk about that for sure. But like if they stayed in their compound and didn't do shit, like fine, whatever. But the problem is that they travel.
Yeah.
So the Anti-Defamation League labels the group as virulently homophobic. In fact, this anti-homosexual rhetoric is often cover for their anti-Semitism, anti-Americanism, racism, and hatred of a multitude of other Christian groups. So on top of that, they have communicated transphobic messages as well, and they've protested funerals for those who have died from HIV/AIDS, and they've protested pride events. And yeah, yes, for those of you playing the podcast game, Mike's shaking his head, and I'm agreeing.
Yeah.
So claiming that they're anti-Semitic isn't a departure from the truth. At one point regarding the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, Phelps said this, and I quote, "Whatever righteous cause the Jewish victims of the 1930s, 40s Nazi Holocaust had, probably minuscule, has been drowned in sodomite semen. Homosexuals and Jews dominated Nazi Germany. The Jews now wander the earth despised, smitten with moral and spiritual blindness by a divine judicial stroke. And God has smitten Jews with a certain unique madness. Jews thus perverted out of all proportion to their numbers, energize the militant sodomite agenda. Jews are the real Nazis."
Like what the actual fuck?
I'm going to go wash out my mouth with soap now.
Yeah.
Enjoy these ads. No.
Yeah. A little bit of hand sanitizer in the mouth.
I'm going to be gargling with Irish Spring. Like, for real. You know, it's already horrifying, and it's not the traditional horrifying that you and I and brew crimers know.
Yeah.
Right. But it's horrifying nonetheless. And there's a series of other beliefs as well that are carried by them, and they make no sense. They're hateful. They're spiteful. The first one's Islamophobia. I'm going to shorten Westborough Baptist Church to WBC just to save us, because no words, quicker time.
Yeah.
But they tauntingly burned a copy of the Quran and called it idolatrous piece of trash, and they were giving it all the respect it deserved right in front of a Muslim man. They have Barack Obama conspiracy theories.
Of course they do.
So the daughter of Fred, Margie Phelps, made some comments about Barack Obama on a news channel. I bet you can guess what news channel that was.
Fox News?
Oh, yeah, buddy.
Wasn't Al Jazeera.
No. They're kind of one in the same. Anyways, okay. Because again, of course it was. And she said that he'd be going to hell, and he was most likely the beast spoken of in Revelation. She also said that his presidency was a sign of the apocalypse. I think it goes without saying, but when a religion focuses on the apocalypse and the apocalypse only, you want to avoid it.
Yeah.
Insane.
If it's a byline, fine, but if it's a main point, bad.
Right. It's like, follow us, a subtitle, and you're going to hell, or follow us, the apocalypse is near. Just
follow
listen.
us.
Yeah.
Apocalypse now.
You either need to turn around and run away, or you need to go ahead and just buy a sandwich sign and start walking down the street, because that's what you're going to end up doing. For real. So in terms of picketing, we all know this. They have some solid travel expenses. They spend as much as $200,000 annually to protest with their neon signs.
Holy
and sometimes, crap. Right, sometimes it goes as high as $250,000, $250,000. So WBC accepts no external donations because they don't want to be beholden to anybody. So why accept donations from organizations or people who are going to hell anyways? Wouldn't want to be in the pocket of Satan now, would we? Right? That's where the church lady comes in, right? Like, wouldn't want to be in the pocket of Satan now, would we? That's a lame church lady impression.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's too bad. They receive the majority of their money from legal fees of the people that they represent. And what kills me is that Westborough Baptist is recognized as a nonprofit organization by the federal government.
Fuck, of course it is. Hate group, and yeah.
It's a lot like what happened with Scientology, right?
Yeah.
So in addition to having minimal costs for living, they also don't pay taxes. And in addition, all lawyers in the law firm are Phelps kids. And when they do file lawsuits, it's usually against communities that try to stop them from demonstrating. And they know their First Amendment rights. and they're really good at defending them. And they make a chunk of change with that as well.
I'm glad Canada doesn't have that bullshit to deal with.
Oh, they almost did.
Yeah.
They almost did. I don't know if you know that story with Westborough in Canada. I'm excited to tell you what I found out. So Westborough Baptist also pickets sporting events like Kansas City Chiefs football and pop concerts. They were recently seen picketing the Foo Fighters, and boy, oh boy, did they get punked by Dave Grohl.
I know, I loved that.
Oh, it's the best. If you haven't seen the video of Dave Grohl basically trolling Westborough, it's the best. He says that, I love you. I love everyone. That's why you shouldn't be hating. You should be dancing. Cue the Bee Gees. You should be dancing on a flatbed truck. It's the best.
The whole band.
Oh, it's so good.
And that's not the only one either. They've done a couple now.
Yes. And it's just so great.
Yeah.
You know, he was born in Warren, Ohio, near where I was born, and he lived in Annandale, Virginia, down the street from here. And by that I mean like a couple hours up.
Nice.
So local boy who hasn't been local in a really long time.
Yeah, no, they never are, right?
We just don't have a lot of things to own.
Or at least ones you want to admit.
Right. Yeah, right. So their picketing is a big draw in terms of attention. More attention means airtime. More airtime means their messages get out there. And whether people are laughing at them or horrified, the messages are still there. They received a ton of press when they picketed the funeral of Marine Lance Corporal Matthew A. Snyder in Maryland. They picketed 1,000 feet from the church for 30 minutes before the funeral began. A lawsuit ensued stating the Phelps published defamatory statements about their family. They said his mom raised Matthew for the devil, and they denounced them for raising him Catholic. The First Amendment canceled one of those counts, but they were still taken to court on 2 others. And here's the thing. When I was looking for this, they did print a flyer for Westborough Baptist. And when they protest funerals for the military, there are many signs that say, thank God for IEDs. It's just ridiculous.
That's awful.
It pisses me off. Like, everything about this pisses me off, but that definitely pisses me off. So they were found liable for invasion of privacy and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The family was awarded a total of $10.9 million. WBC sought a mistrial, but that failed. Eventually, the judge upheld the ruling, but reduced the punitive damages from $6 million to $2.1 million, which took that 10.9 to like 6 point. I can't do math. It just, it was millions, but less. But it gets worse. They did put liens on the WBC buildings and the law office to make sure the damages were paid. So there's that. But as we know, all good things in America come to an end. And in 2009, 2 years after the initial ruling, a federal appeals court reversed the lower court's decision. They said they didn't violate privacy of the family and that it was all protected under the First Amendment. Then, in addition, the court ordered the family to pay Westborough Baptist court costs of $16,000.
What the actual fuck?
Yeah. A year later, the Supreme Court and Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid and 42 other senators filed a brief in support of Snyder, who was the dad of Matthew Snyder. A separate brief was filed by Kansas Attorney General Stephen Six, which was joined by 47 states of attorneys general. And in reaction, civil rights organizations filed briefs in support of Phelps. That's right, supporting Phelps. In the end, in 2011, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Phelps. So there's no, a lot of people say that the system of justice is wrong, but like the whole thing's just busted.
Yeah,
it's just busted. Just unnecessary. And it's all based on politics, right? Initially, all that stuff was signed because it's politics. You support because it looks good. Also, it's kind to do, but it looks good.
Yeah. And
the Supreme Court doesn't care because they have lifetime appointments and they never get off or have to run again.
Which is crazy.
So they're going to rule however they want to. Anyways, in addition, they've also picketed the Boston Marathon victims' funerals, the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting victims' funerals, and a 9-year-old who was shot and killed in Tucson, Arizona. Fred Phelps even wrote a letter to Saddam Hussein at one point. He praised his regime for being the only Muslim state that allowed the Bible to be freely and openly preached on the streets. He's just hitching his horse to the wrong buggy.
Yep.
There is some good news. There are a series of states and locations that have successfully banned Westborough Baptist from protesting. In many places, there are statutes that have pushed back the protest from funerals, or they've limited protests in terms of when they have to end before the funerals begin. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, one local lawyer, Pedro Irigoyen, came up with a novel way to battle the Phelpses when Phelps chartered alleging emotional damage, sued someone who had filed a criminal complaint against a Westborough Baptist member. Irigoyen's team requested court approval to have a psychiatrist evaluate Phelps's family to determine the alleged damage. And the Phelps settled without delay. So when in doubt, call a psychiatrist out.
Yeah.
In addition, they were slapped with entry bans from Canada and England.
Hell yeah.
Westborough Baptist wanted to stage a protest at the funeral of a Winnipeg resident who was killed on a bus, Tim McLean. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Tim McLean, yeah. We covered that quite a while ago.
Was he the fella on the bus that was beheaded?
Yes, he was, yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to bring that up in such a blasé way.
No,
I'm just trying to
definitely
clarify. But Westborough Baptist wanted to protest with the message that he was killed as God's response to Canadian laws permitting abortion, homosexuality, divorce, and remarriage. Canadian officials basically said, fuck you, and they barred him from entering the country.
Yep.
Go Canada. They also intended on picketing a youth production of the Laramie Project, which is a meaningful play featuring the life of Matthew Shepard, being held at Queen Mary's College in Hampshire in England. Members of Parliament and activist groups asked that they be banned. 2 days before the picket date, they were excluded from entering the UK for having, quote, engaged in unacceptable behavior by inciting hatred against a number of communities. Why can't we use the same language?
Yeah.
Here, I don't understand. I never will understand.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
here we are.
In Canada, Section 319 of the Criminal Code, promoting hatred makes it an offense to willfully promote hatred against any identifiable group by making statements other than in private conversation. The Crown prosecutors can proceed either by indictment or by summary process. The maximum penalty is imprisonment of not more than 2 years. But we don't have freedom of speech in Canada. We have freedom of expression, which is slightly different. And hate speech is not protected in Canada, period.
Well, and a lot of times people use that freedom of speech thing as like a catch-all.
Yeah.
Right? Like, freedom of speech to me doesn't mean you can be an asshole.
No, it's not freedom. It's not freedom from repercussions.
It's also not freedom from ignorance.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. They've also been criticized by everyone from various groups to Bill O'Reilly. Yeah. Bill O'Reilly has criticized Westborough Baptist. He calls them evil and despicable, and he offered to pay the entire amount of Snyder's legal costs. So, you know, you end up on O'Reilly's blacklist. You're shit.
Yeah.
You're shit, right?
Yeah, you're a stain on society for sure.
He's not exactly a morality-driven man.
No.
So we're near the end, I swear. But even some of the families left. 20 family members have left since 2004. 2 of note, Nathan Phelps, estranged son of Fred, left on his 19th birthday in 1976. He claims he never had a relationship with his father and that Westborough Baptist was, quote, an organization to vent his rage and anger. He also said that Fred used to beat his wife and children with his fists and the handle of a mattock to the point of bleeding.
Holy shit.
Do you know what a mattock is? Because I didn't.
No, I do not.
For those like me who had no idea, it's basically a pickaxe. Yeah. So Nathan's brother Mark supported this and also repeated the same claims. In addition, Megan Phelps Roper left in 2012 with her sister Grace, and she's been making a film about her experiences. And also Lauren Drain was excommunicated in 2008, and she said that children are brainwashed into their belief system. There's no doubt in her mind that that's the case. So before we hit the conclusion, is Westborough Baptist a cult?
Yes.
In short, yes. I took a look at commonly held characteristics of cults, and out of 15 characteristics, Westborough most certainly fulfills 11 of the 15 with a possible 13. I wasn't sure about 2 of them, so I gave them question marks. The only 2 they don't fulfill is being preoccupied with bringing in new members, because they could care effing less, and making money.
Well, although they do make a lot of money off of lawsuits, so
they do make them off of lawsuits and court fees, but it doesn't seem to be their major reason or cause.
But without that, they couldn't go around $200,000 a year to travel. So
it's true.
Half point.
So Well, I didn't even count. Well, yeah, we'll give it a half point. So 11.5 or 13.5 out
Yeah,
of 15.
exactly.
So I'm calling them a family cult. That's where I'm going with that. Folks are more than welcome to disagree
Let
or
us know.
agree. Yeah, let us know.
But they're a cult.
But yeah, in conclusion, it's just a mess. The family, the church, their beliefs, anything adjacent to them, it's a mess. And Fred Phelps is dead, but his family carries on. And at one point near the end of his life, Fred Phelps was actually excommunicated from the church.
My eyes just went really wide and then back to squinty like they usually are.
And I'll explain. I'll explain the house that's across the street from them in a second here. But Fred Phelps apparently stepped out of the compound, waved to the folks across the street, and said, "You're good people." And that might have been what got him excommunicated from the church.
What?
So the only thing that's really not a mess is adjacent to them. And that's the home that's painted in rainbow, and it's called the Equality House.
Yeah,
and it's
owned by people.
Yes, it's owned by Aaron Jackson. Jackson's the founder of Planting Peace, which is a global nonprofit whose initiatives include environmental conservation and LGBTQ advocacy campaigns. According to their website, quote, the Equality House is a symbol of compassion, peace, and positive change. The house, which is painted in the colors of the Pride flag, serve as the resource center for all Planting Peace human rights initiatives and stands as a visual reminder of our commitment as global citizens to equality for all. And to me, if there's anything this world needs, it's the colors of the Pride flag right now.
Yep.
It is not the neon colors of the signs that spew hatred. It's those. So that's my case on Westborough Baptist. And thanks for trudging through it with me.
Yeah. God hates Westborough Baptist Church and Hail Satan.
Yeah. There's a parody out there somebody did where it's God hates figs.
I like figs, though. But then I am
God
atheist.
doesn't.
That's probably why.
Only the godless like fig Newtons.
Yes.
Jeez.
Fig Newtons. There we go.
I appreciated that. I did.
Perfect.
We're gonna start a metal band. That's what's gonna happen. Who needs a podcast anymore? We're just gonna start a metal band. We're gonna release all our stuff on cassette tapes.
Try to get it on vinyl somehow.
We'll just stick with cassette tapes. We'll make people buy the cassette players. It's fine.
There we go. Yeah.
Sir, I am glad I made it through that. Barely.
Yeah.
But I am going to open my second beer.
Yeah, don't worry because it gets worse from here. So the title for my story is Anti-Feminism and Child Sexual Abuse. Welcome to Quiverfull. Yeah. So I think this beer pairing is going to make a little more sense as we go on because it's really going to speak to the fathers in these families, and to be a father in one of these families, you're going to have a really high opinion of yourself and not really of other people. So as more of a joke, I picked a local beer from Parkside Brewery called Dreamboat because they must fucking think they're dreamboats to be able to pull off this shit.
Dream a little dream of me.
Yeah. So this is a hazy IPA, 6.3% alcohol. I mean, the can is hilarious because it's got someone wearing a button-up shirt with this couple buttons down. You can see like the chest hair. There's all kinds of boats all over it and a big necklace, like a big blingy necklace. It's hilarious.
Oh they have like the ground beef hanging out of their shirt.
Yeah.
The chest hair just chilling.
So, I mean, it's totally just tongue-in-cheek because need a little laugh to start here. So, yeah, it's definitely a really hazy beer. It's got that nice, like, orange color. It's got a white head. It sticks around a little bit of lacing. Like, the head sticks around quite a bit. I poured this about almost an hour ago now, and there's still a head on top, which is amazing.
Oh my gosh.
It's really fruity, kind of citrusy, a bit of melon, a bit grainy, lots of citrus notes on the flavor. It's kind of sweet. There's a little bit of grain in there, but it's mostly on the fruit side. All of it's coming from the hops. Not a lot of bitterness. Just a really easy drinking beer, which is good because I'm going to need to be able to pound back this beer as I read this case.
I was going to say I had like the mild case, but like the really not great beer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say bad beer. It's okay, just not great. And you have like the really shitty case, but a great beer, so it works.
Ours are both equally shitty, I think, the cases.
It's kind of, I don't like leveling them like that because everything's relative.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, let's get into this. Do you like the idea of a household that is run by the husband and the wife does whatever he says?
No.
On top of that, the kids do only what the father says. First off, then you were a monster. And second, you might be into the Quiverfull Movement.
It's like a Jeff Foxworthy joke. If you got kids that only listen to you, you might be Quiverfull.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of aiming for that without even thinking I was aiming for that. That's so funny.
I love it. Oh, man.
So what is Quiverfull, you ask? It is an ultra-conservative sect of many denominations of Christianity, but it seems to have originally broken off of evangelical Protestantism.
Yep.
Yeah. When the Protestant church decided to allow birth control, the fucking horror, as an option, in some cases, not all, but in some cases in the 1930s, some started to become unhappy. Fucking devil worshippers.
Oh.
Moved to the 1970s and 1980s, there started to be a huge rift in the church. Quiverfull was founded in this rift. Quiverfull, as a movement, believes that all children are a gift from God, and to stop a birth would be against God's will, even through birth control and things like condoms.
I can't.
Yeah.
I have so many things to say. I'm going to leave them for now.
And for a first in brew crime history for me, here's a Bible quote that they take their name from in Psalms 127, verse 3 through 5 of the Old Testament. Children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are the children of the youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate. God, I can't read biblical tongue because fuck.
Neither can the Pope. It's fine.
Yeah, that's true.
It's true. Cool. So there's a couple things here that are hysterical. One is that God's reward is only babies.
Yeah, popping out babies.
The other is the idea of having a quiver full just sounds like you really need to masturbate. And
I don't know. Every sperm is sacred. No. Monty Python again.
I love Python. Oh, so much.
Yeah, you do love your Python. What?
Hey yo.
Boom.
We've dissolved.
Yeah, we had to.
We did. It's the only way to get through this. Now I sound like my dad saying, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Now shout out to Dad. I'm going to call him out on that one. Here's the thing. It is so easy to take something like verses 3 through 5 of Psalm 137 and say, this is the justification for everything. When verses 1 through 3 and 8 through whatever might completely change the meaning of that. Right. Yeah. So do I know the Bible enough to tell you what's around it? Absolutely not. But what I can say is that to take something completely out of context, anything, doesn't just not just the Bible, anything is ridiculous. And it is it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because there are some good things. I mean, in the Bible, sure. Whether they're stories or not, whether they're real or not, there's still some good lessons in there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of people making them so intense. learn it, move on.
I think a lot of Christians are getting this way too, that it's not supposed to be read verbatim, really. It's supposed to be like teaching through word, right? It's not like saying this exactly happened. It's
right.
Let's teach a lesson through this story we're telling you, right?
Yeah, and even if you want to treat it like history, learn from the history, move on. Don't apply it to modern stuff. It's just it drives me crazy when people they pinpoint certain things and they're just like, well, that obviously means that, and that's not the case.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, back in this time when this was written, if you were sick, they put leeches on you.
Right.
They cut your body.
Right.
They thought that throwing on a mask with a long nose would keep the plague away from you. I mean, things change. You learn. Sometimes you've got to move ahead a little bit.
Sometimes you have to move on.
Yeah.
And that means more than just reading the Bible from your cell phone. Sometimes you just have to move on.
You can take from all kinds of written words. You can take the good from it, and maybe you have to leave some things out that have just fallen by the wayside, right?
Yeah. I mean, I bet you, I guarantee you, these people aren't fans of neo-Nazis who take Mein Kampf as biblical. And I'm not saying that the Bible is Mein Kampf. People eat me alive. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you can't just take something so literally and just use that as the cornerstone. You can't take one sentence and use it as the cornerstone for everything.
Yeah. Well, I literally listened to an episode of Time Suck recently about the Church of Satan. And I already knew a lot of what he was talking about, but he was surprised that it wasn't Satanist. They don't even believe in Satan or God. It's like an atheistic belief of just living against the church, basically. And then a lot of the commandments, if you will, end up kind of lining up with the church.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, say what you want, but a lot of times they do some good stuff.
Yeah. LeVay might have been a bit of an idiot, but yeah.
Yeah. But continue on, my friend. Continue on down this shit river.
Now let's touch on this quote just a little bit, as it is actually quite telling for the Quiverfull movement. Notice how everything is about the man.
Yep.
Well, this fits their belief, as the movement is absolutely 100% patriarchal. 100%. Of course, God is at the top of the family, but the father is the leader of the household. His wife must obey every and all demand of the husband. Every and all.
It just leads for toxicity.
Yes.
I don't know how people just assume that God's a dude.
The woman has no autonomy and is unable to have a bank account or even email without the express permission of the husband, and in no way is she allowed to have a job outside of being a homemaker. Yeah, let that set in, right? The wife must always be ready for sex, no matter how her day is gone or how tired she is. This leads to rape, as the wife has absolutely no say in the matter, period. That's rape.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm a dude. You're a dude. We're all dudes.
Yeah.
And
this dude.
It is the way it is, but like in terms of like our brains and chemistry. But the thing is like, a good person, if somebody says no, it's no, but also giving somebody the opportunity to say no. I guess if you don't give them the opportunity, then they never really truly say no.
Yeah.
So,
but then if they don't have the option, then it's always no.
Exactly. Yes. That's how I determine that.
Yes.
So, yeah.
The movement also does not allow for any planning of reproductive cycles, as the woman is to let God do his work and bless the family with as many children as possible for God's army. And those words are important.
I'm just all I see is a baby with a shield and a spear in hand. And
That's coming,
funny
right?
too.
Probably. I haven't written about it, but I'm sure that's coming.
Yeah.
A woman that is unable to conceive is considered to be sinful and should repent for her sins, but she also is unable to use any medical treatments to try and induce pregnancy, as this would be going against God. So she is stuck being sinful.
It's very hyper Calvinist to a degree. It's like you're fucked because you can't have a baby, but you can't try in other ways because that's sinful too. So,
Yeah. Women are expected to go through pregnancy without any outside help from doctors and nurses or pain medication.
Obviously, these rules were all set by men.
Yes. Not only is this very dangerous, especially when having decades worth of babies, but it is just silly to not get pain relief. Fuck.
Or just expert opinion.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's just more proof women are only objects or property for these men, not people.
Yeah.
Next, girls in the family are not to be well educated, as their job is to help their mother with the housework and help raise the children in the house. There is no way that a mother alone could, say, raise 19 children alone. This leaves little room for girls to become independent women, as their only job is to serve the family. This is especially the case for the oldest daughters of the families. Become like backup moms, right?
Oh my gosh. I'm so pissed off.
It's amazing you're more pissed off now, and you
angry.
just talked about the Westborough Baptist Church.
Because like, even with the Westborough Baptist Church, it seems like the women have autonomy.
Yeah.
They have the ability to make their choice to go out and protest or do whatever they want. And although it is the shittiest thing in the world, they have autonomy. And I just don't understand. I mean, it literally, the person who created this whole schism and used this whole quiver thing, he obviously didn't get any and couldn't get any. And like, he finally got somebody, and it was like, well, I got to hold on to them, and they can't have a choice.
Yeah.
And that's just how this has to go. It's just so, it pisses me off.
Yep. Hold on to your horses.
Yeah.
This next part is a quote from an article from littlethings.com. Daughters born into the Quiverfull Movement are also expected to have a strong emotional relationship with their father. He is known as being the one man in their life, and sometimes that bond can become emotionally inappropriate or too hard to break away from.
So on a healthy level,
Yeah.
like, I understand relating to your father.
Oh, God, yeah.
And being the patriarch, or, even just like your role model, and like, hopefully a good example of what men are.
But
the problem is that all the
they're
other
not.
rules of this bullshit have set men up to be toxic. So that's what they now grow up with, right?
Yes, yes. For daughters who have an abusive father, it's even harder. Young girls are also expected to dress extremely conservatively, thus blocking any temptation from other men. Because again, men, not women, men.
Right. It's their fault if they dress, in jeans.
Yeah, it's in itself problematic for a host of reasons. Yeah. So, yes, on top of everything, girls are expected to dress down so as not to give men and boys impure thoughts because you vomit.
So not only is this fucked up for the girls,
Yeah.
it's fucked up for the males.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, like, the real world exists. Just go down the road on a billboard, and you've got like an advertisement for a strip joint.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're 35 and you've only been around women who have dresses down to their ankles, and you pass by that, like, you're going to have immediate impure thoughts. And I'm not saying desensitize children to sex, because that's not okay. But there is a fine line and a balance here.
Oh, don't worry, because you'll find out it really only has rigid rules for women. Don't worry. Like, yeah.
Of course.
Of course.
Of course.
So, the next line. Fuck this patriarchal shit. Where it is a girl's fault that a boy or men get aroused and can't keep their dicks in their pants. Like, fuck them. Also, girls do not get to pick who they marry, as this is the place of the father and maybe the mother. You know, the mom sometimes gets a little bit of say on who the husband will be of their daughters. Not always.
I just want to say that, like, if any of them are listening, which they're not, you know, there are plenty of boys in middle school that get random erections in class, and they don't just unzip their fly and pull it out. Like,
well, some
that's
might,
not how
but,
this. Well, but like that's not typically how this works. So to assume, oh man, you're limiting all kinds of self-control.
Yep. Yeah. So boys are groomed to be men of the house for their future as husbands of massive broods of children. They also have power over the girls of the house, all while getting a more full education to lead to the ability to bring in money for his future army of children. Yeah. Only the boys of the family would go on to university. Now, of course, with any group like this, the family must be kept away from vile humans like me and JT, an atheist and a dirty Christian that only has 2 children.
Yeah, I'm a horrible person.
I love that line.
And honestly, I think my wife's the brilliant one. Yeah. So I'm totally, you know.
You're a horrible Quiverfull person. Oh, I had so much fun writing that line.
Oh my God, so bad.
People like us might open their minds to things like feminism, fun, and self-worth, after all. The horror.
Beer.
Yeah. So children in the Quiverfull movement are homeschooled by the mother, and I would have to assume likely many of the older daughters also. Like, you know, it kind of, depending on which source I read, it kind of switched back and forth, but it seemed like that probably the older daughters were also involved. Like I had stated, the boys are given a full education to give them job prospects, but the girls' education stops early enough to isolate them, keeping them inside the home as much as possible throughout their lives. Now you can only guess that the Quiverfull movement, on top of isolating the family, has some other issues.
Yeah.
How about the fact that they are absolutely against the LGBTQ community? If you grow up with an attraction to the same sex or are trans or gender binary, your life will be a living hell, as this is absolutely not allowed. This could lead to all kinds of mental health issues or even suicide, as we all know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gay, how can you have babies?
Yeah. You can try all you want, but you'll never have them.
Yeah. Heaven forbid you adopt.
Now let's talk about the fact that Quiverfull movement is painfully white.
Yeah. It sounds like a white man's religion.
Yeah. Nancy Campbell, one of the founders of the movement, was once quoted as saying, "The reason for having as many children as the Lord would bless you with was to outbreed brown people."
No, wait. Let's take this a step back. Did you say Nancy?
Yes.
So a woman was one of the founders of this movement?
Yes.
I'm uncomfortable. This is ridiculous.
Yes. Yes.
You are coming from the people who marched for the right to vote, who marched for the right to have your credit account, like, and you're taking a step back to like the 1700s.
Yes.
What are you doing?
I know, right? The Quiverfull movement has also been tied into helping alt-right gain power in politics, especially in the United States, and helped lead to Trump winning the presidency. It's true.
Of course it did.
They believe, like all evangelicals, that the world hates Christians, and they believe people like Trump, above even the Republican Party, would help them secure a better future for their faith. Even though Trump is a womanizer, pusher of abortion, an all-around person that lives in a way against every one of their beliefs, other than maybe that women do not count.
Well, here's the thing. Here's a really untapped population because they have an army of voters.
Yes. Yeah. Like,
but
he's literally their antichrist. Like, he is.
He is, for sure. But you know what? To be honest with you, they're not entirely wrong about the world not being a fan of Christians, and because it's people like them that make it like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, you know, the people who are the dumbest are the loudest.
Yeah. So the most well-known Quiverfull family, the Duggars, even lent their voices on social media for the Trump campaign. The mother also lent her voice to an anti-trans robocall that went out in Arkansas. And I have it here for you.
Oh, I'm so excited to not hear this.
Hello, this is Michelle Duggar. I'm calling to inform you of some shocking news that will affect the safety of Northwest Arkansas women and children. The Fayetteville City Council is voting on an ordinance this Tuesday night that would allow men, yes, I said men, to use women's and girls' restrooms, locker rooms, showers, sleeping areas, and other areas that are designated for females only. I don't believe the citizens of Fayetteville would want males with past child predator convictions that claim they are female to have a legal right to enter private areas reserved for women and girls. I doubt that Fayetteville parents would stand for a law that would endanger their daughters or allow them to be traumatized by a man joining them in their private space. We should never place the preference of an adult over the safety and innocence of a child. Parents, who do you want undressing next to your daughter at the public swimming pool's private changing area? I still believe that we are a society that puts women and children first.
I'm going to stop it there because I'm already sick of hearing her voice.
I was sick of it from the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wondering if you point out some of the things from her talk here, because I would like to for a second.
Go for it. Because, yeah,
first off,
human.
First off, you know that, like, this is a straw argument, and they'll always use the straw argument of, men getting into girls' dressing rooms and things like that. I mean, assuming that the only people who are trans are men who want to be women. Okay. So, like, the other thing is, like, in a private space, there's nothing private about a public restroom. It's called a public restroom, motherfucker. Like, so,
and people that are trans, if you are transitioned from male to female, you're no longer a male. You don't care about that. Like, you're
and
a
I'll be
female.
honest, like, transitioning is expensive as fuck. So if you
it's
can't
stressful,
afford it,
it's expensive. It's to
me, in your brain, in your psyche, whatever you feel you are is what you are. If you can't afford to make that transition, if you still feel you're a woman or a man, you're a woman or a man. So it's whatever you feel you are. And who am I to say any differently? Because our society and culture has deemed what a woman and a man is. And I disagree with all of that because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, to the most smallest level, I'm looked down upon because I don't carry like a chainsaw and fix my car.
Yeah.
I've had that happen multitude of times because apparently I'm not a man because I don't do it. But that's a whitewashed example because I'm a white male. But there's just so much wrong with that voicemail. Yeah. The last thing is that all people who are transgender are sex offenders. That of all things is insane.
Yeah. We all know that that's bullshit because, I mean, you can look at all religions and see how many sex offenders are priests. And they are, they usually are straight males, but often offend against young boys. So that whole argument is moot.
And I'm sure we'll get into the whole concept with Quiver, right? So I'm sure we'll, not to bury the lead for you, I'm sorry, but I'm sure that you will hop into that soon.
One of the things too, just a quick Google search here. I just thought I'm going to look it up because fuck the Duggars. Most Canadian provinces cover the cost of gender reassignment surgery. However, feminizing surgery is considered cosmetic, such as breast augmentation, voice surgery, Adam's apple reduction, and some facial surgery, so I don't know what that word is, are not currently covered by health insurance. So the gender reassignment in Canada, in most provinces, is covered because we kind of understand in Canada that it's a human right to be who you are. There is still a lot of very, very, very Quiverfull-like conservatives in Canada that would be pissed off to hear that's a thing, but that's the way it should be. Just because you were born with the wrong sex doesn't mean you should have to stay that way.
Right. And the the entire argument that this is a new thing, like people are all of a sudden deciding they're quote male or female, it's not new. There's nothing new about this at all. So, again, it's a straw argument. All of it's straw, and eventually it gets blown over by the wolf. I just can't wait for that time.
I mean, I can't even talk on it personally because I don't know enough. I haven't done enough research. But indigenous peoples from all over North America, I don't know if it's all groups, but have something called two-spirited. And now not even all gay or trans or whatever indigenous people around North America identify as two-spirited, but two-spirited is on the spectrum of LGBTQ, and it's been around since well before people came from Europe and found North America. And if you look back far enough in, ancient Greece, there was a lot of gay people in ancient Greece. They didn't think twice about sleeping with everyone. It's such a new thing to hate gays. Historically, it's a new thing.
I mean, politically, it's such an easy argument to make. Because if you're a Bible thumper, you're going to go with that guy or gal, but probably a guy.
Probably, yeah.
So, anyways.
All right, let's get back on track. Let's get into some of the more well-known issues with this Quiverfull movement that highlight just how dangerous and worrisome this group is. Let's start with Doug Phillips, head of the Vision Forum Ministries out of San Antonio, Texas. He was one of the leaders of the Quiverfull movement who would fight against homosexuality and feminism because it was destroying the sanctity of marriage. Now, he would meet a 15-year-old, Lourdes Torres, at a homeschooling conference in 1999. This would lead to her becoming a nanny for the Phillips family. Now, of course, the grooming would begin right away with this young girl. A bomb would drop on the community when, on October 30th, 2013, he would step down from his position at the ministry, and the ministry then began the process of selling off his assets. He would be quoted as saying, "I engaged in a lengthy, inappropriate relationship with a woman," he wrote. "Well, we did not know each other in a biblical sense. It was nevertheless inappropriately romantic and affectionate." Now, this appears to be absolute bullshit, as Lourdes, now 29, would speak out publicly and drop a lawsuit on both him and Visions Forum Ministries. This next portion is a quote from a Vice article. Lourdes Torres slapped both him and Visions Forum with a lawsuit that indicates Phillips dramatically understated the nature of their inappropriate relationship, not least by implying that it was consensual. In the suit, Torres accuses him of sexual battery, exploitation, assault, and fraud, among other charges, and claims that he used her as a personal sex object over the course of several years, including while she was working as a nanny in Phillips' home. Torres is also suing Phillips, now defunct Vision Forum Ministries, and its for-profit arm for neglecting supervision and retention. In other words, for knowing about the abuse and not doing anything to stop it or remove Phillips from his leadership roles. According to the lawsuit, Phillips met Torres and her family at a homeschooling conference in 1999, as I said, when Torres was just 15. It claims that Phillips then proceeded to methodically groom the teenage girl, inviting Torres on family vacations, taking her on as a nanny for his kids, and showering her with compliments, money, and spiritual advice until eventually she moved into the Phillips home as a nanny in 2007. That's when the allegations get gross. While Miss Torres was living at Douglas Phillips and his family in October of 2007, Douglas Phillips entered Miss Torres' bedroom and without her consent began touching her breasts, stomach, back, neck, and waist. Phillips then began to masturbate and ejaculate on her. Miss Torres asked Phillips to stop and broke down crying. Despite Miss Torres' repeated requests for Phillips to stop masturbating and ejaculating on her, Phillips proceeded to return and repeat this previous and offensive conduct. Each night that Phillips returned, Miss Torres requested he stop. Defendant blatantly disregarded her request, but continued to masturbate and ejaculate on her each night. Yeah.
It's probably surprising to everybody that I've been so quiet for as long as I have. There's nothing to say about this other than,
Yeah. The 30-page complaint goes on to sketch a devastating picture of Phillips and his ministry, offering a glimpse into the darker side of the biblical patriarchy movement that has taken root in some corners of Christian fundamentalism. In the belief system advocated by Phillips, the Vision Forum, men have spiritual autonomy and domination over church and family, while women are expected to submit absolutely to their fathers and husbands in all aspects of life. According to the lawsuit, Phillips allegedly continued to grope and masturbate on Torres for the next 5 years, and even promised to marry her when his wife died, setting up an abusive catch-22, in which Torres was compelled to submit to Phillips' spiritual authority, even though doing so made her damaged goods in a community that puts an outsized premium on sexual purity.
Can you imagine that pickup line?
Yeah.
Somebody's just got his hand in his pants and he's like, "Don't worry, I'll marry you when Winifred dies." Like, it's just, what the fuck, dude?
In the meantime, the suit claims he had become Tor's spiritual father and the dominant authority figure in her life. Like, vomit, spiritual father. Like, he's masturbating on her and he's a spiritual father. Like, I want to punch this guy in the face.
That's how he makes himself feel better about all this, right? Yeah. You know, he does it because that's what somebody told me I should do, you know? So
quote, Phillips was the pastor of her church, her boss, her landlord, and the controller of all aspects of her life. Obedience to Phillips was as obedience to God in the total institution, the complaint read. Like, she had no fucking choice at that point, right?
She's stuck.
So yeah, Doug Phillips is a dumpster fire of a human being, and it is gays and feminism that are destroying the family unit. Fuck him.
Agreed.
Yeah. Now maybe it's time to talk about Bill Gothard, another leader of the Quiverfull Movement, and one of the men that the Duggar family followed.
Of course they did.
He was the leader of the Advanced Training Institute. This is the Quiverfull Movement homeschool leader, and they say that the curriculum is built as follows. The ATI curriculum uses the teaching of Jesus Christ given in the Sermon on the Mount as the primary source for teaching linguistics, law, history, science, and medicine. Gawker published some examples of these questions brought up from biblical passages, which may sound like, awfully forced. So, how can graphs help visualize the consequences of lust? Or how do prime numbers illustrate the principle of one flesh in marriage?
Quit.
To expand here is a little bit from In Touch Weekly article. ATI has plenty of critics, Gawker, for one, called the program an insane, terrifying homeschool cult with dangerous backwards logic, calling particular attention to its views on sexual abuse. On one ATI handout titled Counseling Sexual Abuse, there's a section called Why Did God Let It Happen? Here is the list for you. Immodest dress, indecent exposure, being won from protection of our parents, being with evil friends. In ATI Wisdom Booklet 36, students are taught that if a woman doesn't cry out while being raped, they are equally guilty as the attacker.
This is literally a religion of victim blaming.
Mm-hmm.
I've had it. I'm done. I'm rage quitting. I'm flipping my big old desk right now.
Yeah. My next line. Notice how all of these are very victim blame based.
Yeah. We're on the same page, literally.
Let's get to know Bill Gothard a little bit now.
Oh, boy.
Being a leader of a Christian group that is supposed to fight for the family above all else, are you surprised that Bill Gothard has been hit with multiple sexual assault, harassment, and forced labor suits?
He's the Bill Cosby of Christians.
He's probably Christian too.
It's accurate.
That's not saying anything about Christians. That's saying about, he probably is though.
Yep.
All from women that worked or volunteered, and I say women loosely, that worked or volunteered for the Institute in basic life principles, also an organization started by him. As many as 34 women have come forward, according to my reading, with at least one actual claim of rape. Many of these were girls at the time, including Jennifer Burlock, who was in his orbit from 15 to 18 years old.
Oh my God.
Sadly, this lawsuit would be dropped over statute of limitation complexities, and no justice would be doled out. Bill Gothard would be forced to step down, but the women would get no closure. So at least he lost his position in this insanity, but none of the women got any closure at all, which is horrible.
Yeah, it's not enough. He needs to be in prison.
Yeah. So this is what they say to close out the case. Quote, "We're not recanting our experiences or dismissing the incalculable damage that we believe Gothard has done." So, next abuse scandal.
Of course.
Now, many people who enjoy reality TV will know the Duggar family really well, as they had their Insert Number of Kids and Counting show, and then a follow-up show after that. Little bit of an issue with the Duggar family, though. Let's start with control issues. Jim Bob Duggar, the patriarch of the family, was in control of all contracts for the family on their show. 100% of the contracts. This would even include his son-in-law, Derek Dillard. No one but Jim Bob had any control at all. Big surprise, eh?
I love the fact that his name is Jim Bob.
Yeah, I know. This also means that he is the only one that is receiving pay for the show, something that Derek would post on social media posts that have since been removed.
Well, I mean, women can't get paid.
But neither can son-in-laws.
Right, apparently. I mean, and not only that, but women don't have bank accounts, so they couldn't get paid anyways.
True. Now, Derek would be fired from TLC because he would make multiple transphobic social media posts, some about other TLC personalities. So yeah, he's not a good person either.
No.
He would tweet, "Transgender is a myth. Gender is not fluid. It's ordained by God."
And who's to say God said it's just man and woman?
Yeah. It's just pointing out, like, even this guy that's pointing out that Jim Bob's a piece of shit, he's also a piece of shit.
It's just different levels of shit.
Yeah, well, it's like just different shitters.
You just stack the shit on top of shit to get a shit sandwich.
Yeah. Now let's move on to the real winner of the Duggar family, Josh Duggar.
Oh, God, no, let's not.
Between 2002 and 2003, Jim Bob would become aware of the fact that Josh was molesting 4 of his young sisters. He would fondle their breasts and genitals when they slept, but then it sounds like he likely did it when they were awake also. Only 5 sisters lived in the home at the time, including Jana, then 12, Jill, 11, Jessa, 10, Ginger, 9, and Joanne, 5. Now, of course, Jim Bob would only try to prevent future abuse from happening, but wouldn't remove Josh from the situation. So the oldest is 12. The youngest is 5. And we don't know which of the 4 of those girls he was molesting, but regardless, so gross.
To be honest with you, without anybody stop checking, no, without anybody telling him no, and with being so kept away or secluded from regular culture and life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was all of them.
Well, only 4 came forward, but yeah. There was also another girl that was not a sister that was molested, making 5, just to keep up.
There it is. Yep.
Finally, Jim Bob would talk with church elders, read men of the church, and they would all decide to send Josh to Advanced Training Institute from March to July of 2003 to another fucking child molester. They had hoped that this training would help Josh lose his sexual deviant behavior. Jim Bob would finally bring Josh to a state trooper in July of 2003. This state trooper, Joe Hutchins, would take no action, but this is not a surprise as he was a personal friend of Jim Bob.
Oh my God.
On a side note, Joe Hutchins would be arrested on child porn charges in 2012 and be sentenced to 56 years in prison. Nice friend. Yes. This all happened before the Duggars became a household name on TV. This is before their show.
The Learning Channel is not the Learning Channel
No.
anymore.
So, quote, in 2002, Jim Bob had run in the principles for a Republican Senate seat. His platform had included the stance that rape and incest represent heinous crimes and as such should be treated as capital crimes, reported in 2015.
Let he without sin cast the first stone, my friend.
This stance seems to be conveniently forgotten when it comes to the sun. Fuck. Move to 2015, Josh Duggar would be caught at it again. This man that is in a sect that believes the family is sacred was caught in a leak of the Canadian cheating website Ashley Madison as he was a paying customer. He would be quoted as saying, "I have been the biggest hypocrite ever. While espousing faith and family values, I have secretly, over the last several years, been viewing pornography on the internet, and this became a secret addiction, and I became an unfaithful husband."
Yep.
Now, we all probably already really don't like Josh Duggar at this point, but 2019 would have a bombshell brewing. And it puts this all to shame.
Yeah.
The Department of Homeland Security would raid Josh Duggar's used car dealership in November and seize his computers. His personal laptop would also be taken. On his computer would be found a Christian-based Covenant Eye program installed that tracks all of your internet usage. His wife installed this on his computer due to his porn addiction. Well, he had found out about Tor browsers and got onto the dark web where Covenant Eye could not follow.
Can I just say the fact that he's a used car dealer is hysterical, number one. But number two, used car dealers everywhere were like, come on, man.
We have enough trouble already.
For real.
There he would download child sexual abuse photos and videos ranging from 18 months to 12 years old.
Oh my God.
Homeland Security Investigation Special Agent Gerald Faulkner would describe his collection in the top 5 of the worst that I've ever had to examine. Yes, this is a father of 6 to 7 children. Now, the investigation would continue in the background until his arrest on April 29th, 2021. So it took some time to get him. Mm-hmm. Of course, even with the evidence against him and the IP address tracked back to his computer, he would plead not guilty. During a court hearing on May 5th, 2021, a federal agent would testify that he, quote, downloaded and possessed 65 images of child pornography and a 2-minute video featuring young girls between the age of 5 and 10. His charges are 2 counts of receiving and possessing child pornography, and he could face 20 years in prison and $250,000 in fines for each.
Neither of which is enough.
No, but if he gets both, it's 40 years and $500,000.
I'll take it, but he needs to be put in general population and not, he needs to not be by himself. He needs to be in Gen Pop because he needs to experience what he did to people.
Yeah. He would be granted bail, but he would have to stay with a couple who were family friends as they didn't have minor children who he was forbidden to see other than his own children with his wife in his presence at all times. So you could never see even his children without his wife in his presence.
I agree.
Yeah. This portion is a quote from Mercury News article. Quote, the couple, Maria and LeCount Robert, assured the judge that there was no Wi-Fi at their home, only dial-up connection. Comstock's ruling came even after federal prohibition officer Dean Nugan told the court that Miss Robert was concerned about being left alone with Josh because he was a male and she was a female. The Daily Mail reported Robert said she wasn't sure how she felt about being alone with him for long durations of time. Maria Robert said could hold piano lessons for minors at other locations, and she and her husband said that they were prepared to remove all of their firearms. Because again, he wasn't allowed to have those in the house.
I love how like you are so bad, dude, that you can't have a kid in the same house as you for 30 minutes practicing piano.
Yeah. And a family that has firearms for legal reasons has to remove them. The couple also agreed to let probation officers, not your husband, not Jim Bob Duggar, not elders in the church, Judge Comstock insisted to the Rubbers, know if Josh Duggar violated the terms of probation. So it's only probation officers. None of this bullshit, right?
All right.
On September 27th, 2021, the judge in the case threw out a motion that Josh Duggar's lawyer had filed trying to have his charges dropped. So I will definitely be watching the outcome of this trial because I want to hear what this guy gets, and it better be something big.
Well, I would imagine that the lawyer was throwing a Hail Mary.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, he's still got to do his duty as a lawyer to try to get his, his defendant a fair trial, even if it's all bullshit and the guy is guilty as fuck.
Right. I mean, just the Hail Mary alone tells me that even the lawyer knows that he's jacked.
Yeah.
It's over,
exactly.
right? So, yeah.
Now, most of the members of this movement are not as wealthy and powerful as the families and men I have mentioned in this story so far, for sure. But there is no doubt with a cult of patriarchy like this, sexual predators abound. From rape of the wives to the sexual abuse of siblings or children, all we have to do is look at the history to know this is the case. The other issues for the less wealthy families is forcing 8, 10, 15, 20 family members into small homes. It is not a healthy thing. And this will lead to unsanitary conditions, right?
Right.
It is not healthy for what is happening in a lot of these families because you can't have this many people in this small of a space and things go wrong fast.
Well, here's the other thing. You got that many people in that small of a space. People know what's going on.
Yeah.
So everybody's staying quiet.
Yep.
It's insane.
So that's my case of the Quiverfull Movement.
Quiver empty. I'm done. I'm spent.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
This and you know what? Here's the sad part, and I know that everybody knows this already, so I'm not telling anything you don't know. This is just a small, itty bitty. I'll only have a little slice of the pie
of both
really shitty sections of religion.
Yeah,
and the fact that these are allowed to continue and persist is a crime in and of itself.
And that a lot of these groups have tax exemptions still.
Yeah, that's it drives me crazy.
Yeah, I think the minute that you have a proven case of sexual abuse against a minor or any kind of thing, you should lose your tax exemption, and maybe it can be reinstated some other time, but it should be lost.
Listen, if any business at all, who, by the way, usually pays taxes.
Yeah, well,
typically.
Most, not all.
Most,
we know that, the billionaires, Amazon.
For sure. If any of these kind of things happen, usually like a small business will shut down.
Yeah.
And to me, in terms of at least these two areas of Christianity, I mean, they're businesses.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Pure and simple, right? And the fact that it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's very little to say anymore at this point. So, yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, let's close this episode out on fuck these fucking fucks.
I think that's pretty much the theme of the episode.
Fuck you, Uncle Fucker.
Yeah. That's for all of you. Y'all can feel free to isolate that audio and make it a ringtone for you.
Yeah, please do. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to send us a message, you can send us an email at brewcrime@pacificbeerchat.com. If you'd like to find us on social media, you can go to @brewcrime. And if you want to find JT on Twitter, you can go to
@JT Brews Crime.
And if you want to go to patreon.com/brewcrime, you can support us. Money goes towards upgrading our equipment, making the show better. And as a Patreon supporter, you get ad-free episodes and 1 episode a month extra. A half pint of crime, as we call it. So
yes.
Check it out. So shout out to our Patreon supporters. True Crime Nana, 3 Beers In podcast, Amber, and the Faves of Our Lives podcast. Cheers.
Bye.
All cases found on Brew Crime are written by Mike or the guest that appears on that episode, and the sources are put into the show notes for each episode. We always want to give credit to the people that research the cases we talk about. Check out the store at tpublic.com/stores/brew-crime-podcast, where you can purchase gear like t-shirts, phone cases, stickers, pillows, and all kinds of other cool stuff. Brewcrime's intro was created by Mike using Creative Commons Attribution License audio from purple-planet.com, soundbible.com, and freesoundeffects.com. Logo design by Ben Greenberg. Thanks for listening to this podcast, and it's been a production of Pacific Beer Chat.
Hi, my name is Jules, and I'm the host of Riddle Me That True Crime, which focuses on unsolved murders and disappearances, where I often do so with the help of family members, where they come on and tell their stories, and oftentimes with experts. I'll usually present the story over a multi-episode story arc. Sometimes I'll do one-off episodes like one I covered recently, which was the tragic and very suspicious death of 14-year-old Noah Donahoe in Belfast, Northern Ireland. So Noah went off on his bike one day. It was Father's Day, the 21st of June, 2020, amidst lockdown. He rides his bike and he's going to Cave Hill Park to meet friends, and something along the route causes him to get derailed. He ends up in an area that he's unfamiliar with and has no business being in, given that he is a Catholic schoolboy and this is a loyalist area. So it takes just under a week until Noah's body is discovered. He's discovered unclothed in a storm drain, and the PSNI comes out with a preliminary conclusion of accident. Mind you, this is before an autopsy has been done to determine manner of death or cause of death, and also before the forensics has been run. The family is screaming out for justice. I really hope you will join me on Riddle Me That True Crime, which you can listen to anywhere you get your podcasts.
I think Villaretti, my levels are good. I think your levels are good.
If you say so, monsieur.
As I belch into the microphone.
So basically, try that again. Part of in addition, all lawyers in the law firm but all good things in America come to an end. In 2009, 2 years after the initial ruling, a federal appeals court reversed the lower court's decision. Try that again. One local lawyer, Pedro Iriganac. Oh, jeez. I had it last night. Iriganagare. I'm glad I was the light beer of the night.
Yes. Anti-feminism and child sex. I can't even say my title. Psalm. How do you read this again? 127 and then the dots 3-5.
Yeah, it's Psalm 127 verses 3 through 5.
Oh, there we go.
Is that how that works?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Low children are low.
But what I. All right, let's try that again.
Yeah. All right. The Quiverfull Movement. Oh, excuse me. From the from on him or the IT8. So to expand on. Hello, sir.
Hello.
I can hear you now. All right. This is no doubt with a cult of the patriarchy, like the sexual predators abound. Oh, what the fuck? I fucked up there. I will definitely be watching the outcome. Sorry, this sentence sucks.
This sentence is sitting there on the page going, hey.
How do I fix this now?